Okay, so there's a lot of different places that you can actually enter into that conversation. This piece is actually a piece by Mike Bidlow, and it's called Not Andy Warhol. And the piece is actually an exact replica of Andy Warhol who did appropriation. So it's appropriation of appropriation. So you can see there's a lot of different ways you can enter into this conversation. There's also another aesthetic philosopher called Hans Belting that you might come across, and he sees art museums as living artistic options, and I have a problem with that, so I wanted to bring him into this conversation because I don't see going to the art museum as shopping for ideas. Okay? For me, going to the art museum is really an experience of hearing the voices of those who have come before me, to try to understand the conversation that I'm participating in, and to then take all that home with me so that I can percolate on that and extend that conversation. Okay? So be aware of Hans Belting a little bit. Okay. So the rest of this lecture is a critique for games that I found in the game industry and the art definitions that I found. Okay, and so a critique in the world of art is a gift. And this is a thank you note that I got from another artist. He says, thank you for your blunt wisdom. It will help me in my future. And so some of the things I'm going to say will sound a little bit harsh, but I just want to say that I'm saying them with love. All right, so Rich Hellman says, well, let's have him speak for himself.
The facts are, we don't get to decide. Art is not a self-defining business. It gets defined by the people, by the consumers, by the people who are moved by it.
Okay, so he's saying it's all up to the audience. Well, that means all the artists and the art critics and the educators and the curators and the directors and everyone who's been involved in the creation of the art community have just been wasting their time. Okay? And basically says it's not my job. Okay? So if you look at what he created, his game, one of his games, it's not art. So good. It matches. It's not my job and he's not doing it. I really don't know why they contacted him for that interview. So, there was a question raised, do you have to have a definition of art to make art? And my short answer is, if you endeavor to make great art, then yes, you do have to have a definition. Okay. The next person that has a definition is Ben Mates, and he is the producer for Prince of Persia.
Games are art. I mean, art is in the eye of the beholder, and I've had emotional experiences playing video games. I literally shed a tear. I literally cried playing Shadow of the Colossus.
All right, so I would agree with him that Shadow of the Colossus, if you're familiar with that game, is a work of art, most definitely. But he's saying that art is an emotional response. Okay, so this kind of comes out of a 1940s idea from Victor Lowenfeld. He was an art educator who was very influential. And so around the 1940s or so, when Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning are doing their thing and saying, pulling from within, they start to teach that art is an emotional response. It's about feelings. And kind of ruined everybody from that day forward. Okay, so Prince of Persia is the game that he produced.
Since the beginning of time, legend has told of an epic battle between darkness and light. But now the darkness spreads, and an unknown warrior will rise. With a deadly new ally.
Okay, so this game is really dramatic, really engaging. I did not find it to be an emotional experience, and it doesn't match the producer's definition of art anyways. But the original design of this game was done by this guy, Jordan Mechner, okay? And what he did is he was interested in synergizing these four things. The Castles of the Dr. Creep, which this is a Rube Goldberg type puzzle game for the Commodore 64, that's you know how old it is. And Karateka, which is a game that he designed before this one. And then he wanted the first 8 minutes of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. He wanted that experience in there. And then he combined it with Arabian Nights because nobody else had done that before. So he was synergizing, but he really, there was no intention to make art here, okay? But that's kind of interesting to see where this game has gone, right?
Peggy 16.
From out of the sand they came, an army of undead, laying waste to anyone in their path. To stop them would take more than a mortal man.
The destiny of the kingdom lies in you.
With these powers, I have a chance to set the wrong things right. From out of the sand they came, and to the sand they shall return.
Okay, so this game that started as this synergy to create this Raiders of the Lost Ark experience is starting to take on a life of its own. Okay? And so the producers of this game really need to begin to listen to what the game wants to do. Okay? And so here's an elaboration on that idea. So, Prince of Persia. Persia is modern day Iran, right? It is post 9/11. We have some issues with the Middle East, right? The Middle East has issues with us. It goes back a really long time. There are some things we can begin to explore and understand within the context of this game that says is to set the wrong things right. Who's wrong? Who's right? This is an opportunity to truly explore it. So this is a painting of Alexander the Great burning Persepolis to the ground, right? This relationship, this antagonistic relationship, goes back a really long time. And I think we really need to begin to understand and explore it a little bit more fully. And I think that this game could actually take us there. So I hope that they will have the guts to actually take the game there and begin to truly break down and understand the kaleidoscope of issues and reactions between the West and the Middle East. Okay. So Todd Howard, this is another game.
Definition of art is something that exists only for itself. It has no other useful purpose. Meaning, a car can't be art because it's used to get you places.
All right. Again, this is another Victor Lowenfeld 1940s definition of art that every junior high and high school teacher seems to teach to this day. Okay? He's not thinking critically for himself. He's just giving us the textbook answer. Okay? And so, it's like if a car can't be art, so let's consider Andy Warhol's art car, right? And let's say, okay, well, that's not good enough. It's just a race car with paint splashed on it. That's not art. right? So let's consider the art car parade, right? My favorite is this one, the couch car, where you control it with a game controller, you know? And so this also brings to mind, these guys are outsider artists. What about outsider art? They don't know their definitions of art. Sometimes outsider art does actually hit great art. It hits the mark, the target. An example would be Henry Derger, and he left behind a tremendous body of work that nobody knew he was working on, usually referred to as the realms of the unreal. It's an epic story of the innocent and of those that exploit the innocent. Now, he knew exactly what he was trying to communicate with his work, and this is what his apartment looked like when he died. He left behind a 15,000-page manuscript with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paintings that illustrated it. And so he really hit the mark. So sometimes outsider art does hit the mark, but it's hit or miss. If you want to endeavor to make great art, you really do need to be aware of what it is you're doing and what your definition is, and get in control of it. So that way, it's not just a surprise after you die and people find it.